Today is the Women for Women Day. This was a day that I initiated a couple of years ago with a few colleagues, and we ran it at Trades Hall, and it was called the Empowered Women. And it was really, the idea behind it was that we all had an awful lot of experience and information and knowledge to impart, and we felt we wanted to give something back. So we wanted to organise a not-for-profit day, but actually sharing some of the things that we've learned. You know, we're all of a certain age now, and in theory we have a wee bit of wisdom from our life experiences. So that was the idea behind it then, and not everyone could make it, so we planned to run another one. And life got in the way, which is one of the things we'll be talking about today, how life gets in the way. And this was the first opportunity we had to run it again, so we changed the name slightly in that it's called the Women for Women Day, but ostensibly it's the Empowered Women Mark II. So we're 4 therapists. Between us we have decades and decades of experience of our fields, and those range from my own is psychotherapy and hypnotherapy and Reiki. Caroline's is homeopathy, reflexology, Reiki and mindfulness. Chloe's one of the teachers of mindfulness in Scotland, and Irene McCabe is a naturopathic nutritionist, clinical hypnotherapist. The day itself is not for profit. The profit share proceeds will be going to Chris's House, which is a suicide intervention charity run by Anne Rowan, who lost her son to suicide, Christopher. I know quite a few of you here, but for those that I don't, I'll go through the motions and the mechanics anyway. So my name's Angela Traynor, and I'm director of the Harvest Clinic in Glasgow, which is in St George's Cross, just up the road there. And we now have around 20 different therapists, different disciplines all working from there, including some fairly eminent doctors and very, very highly qualified and skilled, experienced therapists. I've been a therapist myself for over 30 years, and I've lectured in my subject in clinical hypnotherapy here, down south, Portugal, and Malaysia and Singapore and all sorts of different places for just under 30 years. So I'm a hypnotherapist, a clinical hypnotherapist and psychotherapist to trade, and I've lectured to university level, to the University of West London, to MSc level in clinical hypnotherapy. I also teach Reiki, and I run workshops and I run women's development days from my countryside home, where I live with my husband Graham, who's here, and we live out in the middle of nowhere. We live up on a hill overlooking the campuses with coos and sheep as neighbours and pals, just outside Caledonian. So aren't I great? If I was chocolate, I'd eat myself. So that gets the phony baloney out of the way, as Elizabeth Kubler-Ross used to call it. There's nothing worse than a doctor perfect. There's nothing worse than a doctor know-it-all. I'm not a doctor, by the way, you know, but somebody that's going to tell you, hey, I've got it all sussed, I've got the answer, I know it all. Don't believe a word I say. You can believe them if you want, but don't believe a word I say. Listen to what I'm going to say and test it against your experience. Make experience your teacher. Don't take things at face value just because somebody stands up. I could be lying. I could be making it all up. I could have read a book about hypnotherapy last week. You wouldn't really know. So make sure you chew on it, you taste it, you bounce it, you cut it, you scrape it, throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. And if it does, then fine, take it on board. What else do I want to say about that? I will refer at one point to my, I've been dying to say this all my life, bear with me, my book. I really would be pissed off at me if I was sitting there at This is like me having a baby. I didn't get to have a baby, right? I had a miscarriage, but I didn't get to have a baby. So this literally is like me bringing the wean in and making me all go, oh, you think you've never seen a wean before? So I will refer to my book, and I do have something there. You've probably noticed them, there's about 400 that I'm trying to get rid of. I can shamelessly promote it because, again, it is for charity, it's for pancreatic cancer research. The profits of the book are going to that. So that's all the phony baloney, as I said. My life story, however, might be just as relevant as my CV. I graduated in psychology from Glasgow University in 1980, and then I met the handsome Prince, and he carried me off on his white charger. 22, me, in my meringue wedding dress, off to his castle, before he disappeared one night within the first year of our nuptials, between the starter and the main course. He wasn't to be seen again until the evening of our divorce, which made me the first person in the entire history of our family to bring the shame of divorce to the family door. My beloved had ridden off with a colleague and mutual friend to a Newcastle, not Newcastle, a Newcastle, leaving me in an abyss, the medical profession called clinical depression. Today, though, I would refer to it as suffering from a broken heart. I did at least contemplate opting out of life at one point, but whilst he was writing the antidepressant prescriptions for me, my enlightened GP also suggested psychotherapy, from which a very real healing and recovery began. And later I decided to train myself as a therapist. I found that what he did for me was rewire me on the inside. He was an extremely skilled therapist. And afterwards I searched for my teachers and my tribe, those that had been up the mountain before me, who had first-hand knowledge of the terrain. And I trained in many disciplines, as all of the girls have done. I still feel extremely privileged to be able to accompany my own clients now as they climb their own mountains. I am an unfinished symphony, but I went on to develop the Harvest Clinic in sunny Glasgow, and at the age of 37 I met the handsome King. Fall out later on, right? We ran away to the island of Iona to get married. There was no meringue wedding dress this time. It was more a couple of fairies than a white charger and a pair of walking boots. But here's another story. Once upon a time, there were 3 sisters. When they were grown up, each decided to seek truth and purpose in her own way. The first declared, I'm going to look after the sick and broken. The streets are full of them. I will bring them healing and care. The second sister said, everywhere I see people in dispute and conflict with one another, I'll go out to reconcile them. And I will bring them peace. The third sister declared that she would stay home. After 2 years, the first 2 sisters returned. One said, it's hopeless. There's simply too many sick people out there, I can't cope. And the second said much the same, it's impossible. I am torn to shreds. They sat in exhausted, burnt out despair, looking at each other. Then the third sister filled a bowl with muddy water from a nearby pool, and she said, look at that. They looked, but they saw only muddy water. Let it stand, she said. Let it be. After a while they looked again, and the muddy water was clear now, and they saw their own reflections in it, as clearly as in a mirror. The third sister told them, when the water's all stirred up, it's very muddy and you can see nothing. It's clear only when it's very, very still. Only when in stillness can you see your own self. Can you see what you should do, where you should go. Only then can you plunge with passionate love into caring for others, whether through healing or politics, and be indifferent to the fruits of your actions? When we throw ourselves into life decisions without a real sense of ourselves, without having seen our own reflection in the muddy waters of life, we can end up in a situation of codependent behaviour, where we want to fix everything and everybody to find some sense of ourselves. But we haven't found ways to safely harness ourselves. We don't have enough scaffolding round about us. We burn out, we break down, trying frantically to do it all out there. Even the new age, with all its affirmations and all its secrets and its rainbow colours, can be utterly exhausting. In the book that I've written, Love Never Dies, here it is again, I'd like to read a wee short section on the exhaustion of positivity. As a therapist, the new age obsession with all things laughter, light and sparkle has kept me in a job for over 3 decades. How so, I hear you ask, dear reader? Because when we suppress emotions and repress so-called negative feelings and emotions like fear, anger, depression, bitterness, rejection, rage, jealousy, guess where they go? The angels and the unicorns don't actually carry them away to planet Sequin for recycling. They go deep into our marrow, our psyche, and they rot there, acting like invisible battery acid corroding our core self. They usually require valiant attempts at anaesthetics, alcohol, sugar, chemicals, spending, punishing exercise regimes, OCD behaviours, glamour, image, controlling systems, self-righteous anger and indignation to keep them in check. Is that, or we undertake military policing at great cost of the walls and borders of our denial? And this too comes at quite a price. We find emotions leak and hemorrhage embarrassingly at the most inappropriate and awkward times. Now I feel like Victor Meldrew of the alternative scene. Positivity is important and it has its place. Smiling and laughter, love and lightness of spirit are of great value, but we repress and deny our negative emotions at great peril. And anyway, they can be the illusory masks of codependency. Nice person's disease, as I call it. We shame ourselves for having them, and then we blame others for having them instead, called projection. Thanks, Sigmund. Being unwell and forced to slow down or even lie down is a fantastic way of playing catch up with whatever you have been avoiding deep down. I discovered this one myself this week, and there were some fascinating corkers in there trying to find sanctuary and take root. Self-loathing is not the medicine. Loving, gentle recognition of human nature, my human nature, is all that is required. Here's some words that I wrote, reframing some writings from Ram Dass that I put into Glasgow. Sit on the couch, lie on the bed, crouch in the cushions and wait. Stay in for a while. Don't change a thing. Release that false grin. Drop the adrenaline fixes. Stop doing stuff. Forget the decluttering project. Accept your own negativity, and in so doing, the brokenness of others. Everyone's trying their best, no matter the distressing disguise they're wearing. Sit up and watch the light change, the fullness of the moon, and the mystery of the stars. Just be held there in your messiness. Have a long lie or a DVD, but make it luxurious. Wear the good jammies, Have the candles lit as you shower or bathe. Soothe yourself with comfort music and Comfort Max food. Embrace your vulnerability, your soft and at times scared wee self. Have a moan, apologise in advance for bitching. You're raw. Remind yourself it's okay to be overwhelmed and whiny sometimes. You have an inner child that needs to. Be a bit selfish for a while. Avoid anything that looks like a challenge. Oh, and avoid positive people like the plague until they surface and decompress. Perfectionism is the curse of the disempowered woman, spinning her plates with ever-increasing resentment and beating herself up in the process. This is the woman who bases her own worth on her ability to satisfy the needs and demands of others and her relentless demands of herself. Sydney Blatt of Yale University links perfectionism to a higher risk of depression and suicide. The constant striving causing the stress impairs the immune system, so we're more vulnerable to illness. And perfectionism and procrastination go hand in hand. If we can't do it perfectly, we often won't play at all. So we procrastinate and we suffer from chronic indecision. We keep putting things off. We won't even try, and then we hate ourselves even more. Here's a few startling statistics. 1 in 4 women are on antidepressants. 1 in 4 girls are showing signs of depression by age 14. I'll say that again. 1 in 4 girls are showing signs of depression by age 14. It's recorded that 158 women took their own lives in Scotland by suicide in 2017. That's at least 3 times the number of women that are in this room in 1 year in a wee country like Scotland that we know of. Add to that the statistics affecting the health of young women, eating disorders, alcohol and drug abuse, self-harm. We see them at the clinic on a daily basis. Now, we may be horrified by other cultures that suppress women. Women were only recently given the right to drive in Saudi Arabia. There are cultures in which women still bind their feet. There's the practice of female genital mutilation. And we may smile at the idea of Victorian women binding their corsets, suffocating for their fashion, wanting to literally fit in. Yet we are a culture which only allowed its own women the right to vote less than 100 years ago. A country that still pays women less than men. But at least we do have a voice on the political stage today. Since 2005, the number of women who are world leaders had more than doubled. So we've made a start, but too often these same women are judged by their legs, their hairstyle, or their fashion sense, often by women. We were told we could have it all, and in the 60s many women joyfully burnt their bras. However, some of us replaced those bras with surgical implants for breasts that would point to the skies. Some of us need surgery on our feet to repair the damage we've done with the Western method of foot binding, crippling high heels that other women may one day smile at. And many women today choose to surgically cut their bodies and their faces open in the quest for beauty. How far have we really come? We live in a world that's overstimulated. We're bombarded with choice. Just picking a TV programme's a Herculean task in our house. So many box sets on Netflix, so little time. We're exposed to at least 200 times more information than we were 20 years ago. 70% of people who attend a GP are suffering from a stress-related condition. We are the overs. We overwork, we overeat, we overdrink, we overmedicate, we overspend, we overthink. We judge ourselves as too fat, too thin, too old, too stupid. Many of us are living lives of quiet desperation, travelling from soulless shopping centres to indulge in the national pastime, shopping. Before we head off to the charity shop or the dump to offload the stuff we bought in previous shopping trips. And then we sleepwalk from the fridge to the flat screen TV that tells us to revisit the shopping centre. Tells us that we're not okay without the right label, the new gadget. We're not okay unless we look and, most importantly, spend a certain way. Mass hypnosis. The whole system is set up to tell us that we're not good enough, to keep us wanting and buying more. In a vain attempt to prove our worth, we push ourselves to burn out or break down. If I just get that job, if I just get that body, if I just get that man, or if I just get that handbag, then I'll feel good enough. But that day never comes, does it? Many of us have given away our power to the illusion of perfection. Hungry ghosts, sleepwalking our way through our lives. And yet, the Dalai Lama said that Western women will save the planet. How come? In her book, The Chalice and the Blade, I've spared no expense on the PowerPoint presentation. In her book, The Chalice and the Blade, the scholar Rianne Eisler provides evidence from archaeology and anthropology that we lived in a world that was essentially peaceable for over 30,000 years, where the Godhead was the divine feminine, the mother, creator, God, who dates back more than 35,000 years. So God has been considered to be female for much, much longer than considered to be male. Now, of course, God is neither male or female, we know that. But in terms of the way that we worshipped, it was the mother, creator, God. And this was a time in our prehistory where for those 30,000 years or so, women were revered and respected as the creators and birthers of life. We all came from a woman. We lived in harmony with the cycles of nature and Mother Earth and with all of life. Caroline was talking about connection with the moon. Women's bodies were seen as sacred, and they operated on the highest level of society as priestesses, presiding over the rituals of birth and death. They were the judges, the wise women, the healers, and the oracles. And then 5,000 years of domination and patriarchal suppression followed, beginning in the Bronze Age, with conquering tribes devoting themselves to the art of war, power and control. These early peaceful cultures were decimated. The suppression of women began. Sharing was replaced by hoarding by the ruling classes. We lost the balance of the sacred feminine energy. In a short time, the previously sacred body of women had become the property of man. Might this explain a legacy of low self-worth, even self-loathing, which we as women have internalised genetically, hereditarily? Tens of thousands of women were killed as witches in just a few hundred years around the 15th century. Some say up to 10 million worldwide. Many of them single, poor and elderly women. The wise women, the healers, the herbalists in the culture in the village. Maybe we need to remember who we were before the last 5,000 years of suppression and reconnect to our deep inner wisdom. I'd like to share some things I've taught on various courses and trainings to help us manage these overstimulated systems and help us to see more clearly where we should go, what we should do. I've spared no expense and brought along a working model of the brain, and you'll find it attached to your seat. So if you lean under your seat and just feel under the cushion of your seat and you pull out the model. You all got it? Feel into your seat. All got hands, and you hold your working model of the brain up vertically. So the thumb should be on the inside and the fingers should be curved over the top. This is the brain. This is your spinal column, this is your brain, front of the head, back of the head, and where your thumb is what we call your limbic system. You don't need to know that, I'm just showing off. You do need to know that in here lives the amygdala. And the amygdala looks like a wee almond. Almond's how you pronounce it, not almond. Almond. Somebody told me that, call him the amygdalarum, because this is where it all kicks off when you're having a flaky. Your burglar alarm. It signals the firing of adrenaline and other crazy-making chemicals into the body in response to real or imagined threat. Our thoughts. It's the accelerator in the body, and many of us don't have a working braking system. So it causes massive panicky feelings. And those panicky feelings trigger anxious thoughts and memories and even more anxiety. It builds up in the system. It's got no way of release. We can't sleep, we're wired, we're anxious, and it acts like battery acid in the body, making us ill. So we look to externals to soothe. The fridge, the drink cabinet, the doctor, the shopping centre. Or we create dramas and get involved in busyness, usually other people's business. That will give us some way to hang our anxiety and somehow justify it. And an amygdalarum can become stuck in a loop. Now this might be due to earlier trauma, where our emotional circuits were blown through constant overwhelm, or through the things that we say to ourselves about our life. It's hopeless. It's a disaster. It's outrageous. That's my favourite one. We can become adrenaline junkies addicted to the buzz of this chemical shitstorm. We need to be aware of the things we're saying to ourselves about our lives. It's a disaster. I couldn't find a parking space. Words and thoughts create reactions in our bodies. If I say to you, don't think about a pink giraffe, what are you thinking about right now? Yeah, you've got the pink giraffe and you're trying to put a big cross over the front of it. If I describe a juicy sour lemon taste of it, drawing your jaws in, bitter, long enough, you begin to salivate more and your mouth will really dry up. That's how quickly your body responds to a thought. We need to be mindful of our habitual thought patterns. With tens of thousands of thoughts a day, but it seems the research says most of them are negative. Our amygdala doesn't downgrade or discern. It just fires out the messages of red alert, and the cycle continues. But the good news is we can trick the amygdala with the breath and interrupt that response. We can send it a signal to stand down simply by changing our breathing. When we deepen and slow down our breathing and breathe out longer than we breathe in, our amygdala stands down. It gets the message, all is well. And we feel calmer and we're less reactive. So let's try a wee exercise I call the accordion breath. If you put your hands on your rib cage, that's good. If you can feel it, the phone's in there somewhere. And as you deepen your breathing, just breathing down into your rib cage and your hands, you should find your hands moving in and out and apart. As you breathe in, your hands should be moving apart, and as you breathe out, your hands should be coming closer together. So just get a sense of your own rhythm. Don't over push, just as I breathe in, I should feel the balloon filling up and the accordion's going out the way, and I'm playing the accordion back in as I breathe out. In and out, as if I'm playing the accordion. Now already your amygdala is paying attention. And now I want you to begin to lengthen the out-breath. If you don't like breathing exercises, don't play along. But I want you to lengthen the out-breath. So you breathe out longer than you breathe in. But don't push. Gently does it. Now your amygdala is really settling down. Your amygdala is loud and clear getting the message, hey, it's not just all is well, all's really cool, man. And when you inhale, you can even hold for a second or two before the longer exhale. When you have that wee hold on the in-breath, you give your body an oxygen bath. Every cell in your body is bathed in more life-giving oxygen, and more toxins are dispelled on that out-breath. Do you know that 70% of your body's toxins are eliminated through the breath? Think how much money you've spent on detoxes and products and pads for your feet at 20 quid a box, and all you have to do is breathe properly. It can be done any time, waiting in a kettle boiling, at the traffic lights, in the supermarket queue. The more you practice when you don't need it, the more it kicks in when you do. The breath regulates another important player, the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve comes from the Latin word that means to wander. You can think of it as a big octopus with big tentacles. It wanders to every important organ in the body. It starts up here in the midbrain and travels through the body, influencing tone of voice, facial recognition, our heart, our lungs, our liver, our pancreas, our stomach and intestines. And the vagus nerve has been renamed the love nerve by one academic. It's in charge of your braking system. It tells the body to chill out through the relaxation response. Now, when it's not working properly, it leads to inflammation in the body. And that inflammation is also our ability to relate to others. So when my vagus nerve's not working very well, Graham and I are usually not getting on too hot. I'm inflamed. It causes issues in pain. It causes issues with digestion and immune system problems. But when the vagus nerve is working well, it acts as a big comfort blanket in the system, and it triggers the production of a tranquilizer throughout the body. It's called acetylcholine, you don't need to know that. It's like liquid Valium. It squirts liquid Valium into the system. And we can learn to administer this liquid Valium into the system in lots of ways, but primarily the breath that I've just shown you. We can stimulate it with the accordion breath, with massage, with physical exercise, or meditation and social connection. Your vagus nerve can be toned up to work better. Oxytocin is often referred to as the love chemical in the body. As levels increase during touch, during hugging and woohoo sex, it makes us feel good. So here's an exercise that will increase your oxytocin levels. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to take your clothes off. And flood your brain with lovely relaxing delta waves. Let's call it the cross your heart hug. I've nicked it from a recent innovative therapy called the havening technique, which is applied to phobias and trauma. So you cross your heart with your arms. Your heart loves that. It feels really soothed. And just gently touch your shoulders if you can. And then begin with a light touch to stroke the shoulders from the socket here down to the elbow. We're going to do this about 20 times. Or even longer. It's not good to do in a public place. As babies, just you keep doing it, as babies when we were held, these are the areas that would have been in contact with the heart of the person holding you. And usually we would hold and stroke the outside of the baby. So it's getting stimulation here on this side. And we have lots of good body sense and memory of that comfort. It can be a lovely way to soothe yourself to sleep at night too. And it produces those wonderful delta brain waves. You can carry on, you can stop. Very recently we discovered a feature of our brains called neuroplasticity. Your brain is plastic and adaptable. We now know that every time you learn a new skill, your brain grows new brain cells. Physical exercise is one of the best ways. We can make up to 3 times more brain cells. So chuck the Sudoku and get your trainers in. One of the best drivers of our plastic brain is when we repeat new thinking, new behaviour. We grow and strengthen new neural pathways. So going back to my hand model of the brain, here with the 2 fingernails of the 2 middle, hold up again, look at your hand. This is the prefrontal cortex where the 2 middle fingers are but tucked in behind the eyes. This is where we grow new fibres, new connections. So just like if you go out and walk in the countryside, the more you walk the same path, the deeper and more established that pathway becomes. And it gets easier and easier to walk through the long grass because it gets sort of packed down and the pathway develops. Old unwalked pathways become overgrown and defunct and they disappear over time. So the thoughts and behaviours we feed are important. And this is where techniques like hypnotherapy come into their own. When we unpack old core beliefs and patterns, when we learn what we need to learn from our past and integrate that, we can stop feeding our unhealthy core beliefs. When we install new healthy beliefs and suggestions and start feeding them, we experience change. We're less driven by the beliefs we had about ourselves in the past. The past does not equal the future. The past does not equal the future. Hypnosis is a perfectly normal, natural state, just like the feeling first thing in the morning when you waken, but you can't be bothered to get up, and you think, I'll do it in a minute, I'll do it in a minute. You might even pretend to be asleep. And in that relaxed state, your mind will accept the suggestions that are right for you. You know everything that's going on, you're aware, you could walk out at any time. You should feel you can't be bothered, it's not sleep. And clinical hypnosis is a combination of psychotherapy, where we apply psychological methods for insight and outcome, with the technique of hypnosis. But it's not magic. We need commitment and resilience. We need a backbone, not a wishbone, to make the changes long term. As someone who was given a recent diagnosis back in April, May time, of breast cancer, I had a mastectomy 5 weeks ago, and I can testify to its effectiveness for pain relief and pain control, and the fact that I'm actually standing here in front of you today. I know I'll be using everything I've learned from the world of hypnotherapy. I'm about to undertake 18 weeks of chemotherapy on Thursday and a month of radiotherapy after that. And everything that I learned taught me to reframe the language and the information that I was being given, because for many people, cancer, the word cancer, has a lot of associations. So I'm now currently working on my next book called Dancing with the Chancer. It is very important that we reframe our experiences in life and we watch the language that we're using. So I go to the health hospital on Tuesday. I'm going for a mysteryectomy, was what I said, or a masterectomy. I'm going for key amore therapy. I'm having ray joy therapy. The reframing, the way that we look at the experience that life deals us, is hugely important in terms of what we mobilise in response to the challenges that life gives us. 2 wee takeaways before I close. Decide on one small change right now that if you did it every single day, over time it would set you in a different path. It might be to ban, that's the adverbs. It might be to ban the snooze button, to restrict your social media and TV, to eat fresh veg every day, to drop gossip, to practice gratitude daily, to practice a random act of kindness every day, to go on the jealousy diet, to go on the complaining diet, or to go on the diet fill in your own blank. And give yourself 15 minutes at least. Become, point 2, a time maker. You'll never find time, make it. Find the gap to be still and develop that prefrontal cortex. Get up 15 minutes earlier, I'll go to bed 15 minutes later. Grow those brain cells. Watch the sunrise, watch the moon. Practice a time in technique like the accordion breath or the cross your heart hug. Connection and social relationships are so empowering and they're linked to our levels of happiness. So find your tribe, your community. Some of them are here. Join a book club, join a training, recontact old pals or make new pals. Sign up for a workshop. I run Women's Days, I will be once I get over the other side of the Chancellor, and retreat weekends. There's Reiki trainings galore here. We can signpost you to future events if you leave your details on the clipboards, but remember there are 4 and you'll only get it for the person you've written it on. There are lots of groups forming out there where we can share our experiences and get the validation and empathy and support and help us to remember who we are as women, help us to find our tribal community. The empowered woman shares from her heart. She doesn't carry her self-worth in the clothes she wears, her handbag or her hairstyle. I hope I'm saying that in a few weeks. She carries herself with dignity and is in touch with her vulnerability, her soft place. She allows her tears to flow, but she will rise as a she-wolf to protect herself or others. She's not static. She waxes and wanes like a moon. She's in touch with her connection to her mother nature. She has no need for perfection and has little interest in competing or comparing. She knows how to laugh, especially at herself. And as I said earlier, I'm still a work in progress. Thank you.